our schools and share so that you guys have all the information needed. Because we're a team. We work together with you to make sure that your students are at school and attending school. We know illnesses and things like that come up, but we want to make sure that your students are at school and work together in case there are other reasons that they're not at school. So our agenda for tonight is I'm going to review some data around attendance and how that affects students' learning. I'm also going to share attendance procedures in the Union School District, our SAR process, our independent study policy, some helpful tips from home, and halfway through this presentation tonight, we'll have Elisa Stone. She is the district attorney for RISE Court, which is Resources to Improve Student Education. And she's going to share about attendance as well and her role in helping schools with attendance. Once again, for those of you that just joined, I'm going to drop into the chat. It's a Google form for you to fill out if you have questions. I'll be creating an FAQ to share later. We're going to start with a little video. This is Alicia, who you'll hear from earlier tonight, and she created this PSA to go out to families around attendance.
Every parent is hopeful for their child's future.
Here he comes. Good morning.
Showing up on time every day is the first step toward that bright future. Attendance in early grades is the single most powerful predictor of graduating high school, even more than test scores.
All right, let me see who's not here today. Mike, Lisa, Jen.
Absences may not only cause your child to fall behind academically, but your child may also struggle with the stress of trying to catch up with the rest of the class. Children with lots of absences will also miss out on important social benefits, like making friends and building positive relationships with their teachers. In fact, truancy is the biggest predictor of juvenile delinquent behavior. Just missing a couple days a month can add up. As your child gets older and continues to think, I can miss a day or two, that habit will negatively impact their ability to be a responsible adult. Students with chronic absences also have a higher rate of unemployment, poverty, health issues, and substance abuse as adults. But you can keep this from happening and set your child up for success. Establish a routine with consistent bedtime and wake-up time for your child. Create a help bank. This is a circle of people who help your child get to school when unexpected things come up. Keep track of your child's absences on a calendar. And communicate with your school about any absences or struggles your child may be having.
Good morning, Miles.
Make being on time an important part of your daily routine so that every day you and your child are building toward that bright future. Contact your child's school district for more information about ways they can help support your family.
All right, so that's just a little insight into what we're going to be reviewing tonight. Oops, let me stop this and go to the next slide. Okay. So one of the things that we want to talk about is how coming to school every day really makes a difference, and talk about some research. So as the video shared, attendance is the #1 predictor of dropout and graduation rates. Only 17% of chronically absent students in kindergarten and first grade can read on grade level. There's a 25% drop in likelihood of graduating high school in 4 years when students are absent between 5 to 9 days a semester. And as we think about middle school and high school, since we don't do the grades with GPAs in elementary school, but as little as 5 to 9 absences a semester can drop a student's GPA from a 3.0 to a 2.7. And so we do know students are sick, and when students are sick, we want them to stay home, but we also want to show the importance of students being at school and what that looks like for the students when they miss school. So good school attendance, what does that mean? When you're at school, elementary students, they'll read well by third grade. Middle school students, they're going to pass their important courses. High schoolers stay on track for graduation. College students earn their degrees, and workers succeed in their job. Too many absences, excused or unexcused, can keep students from succeeding. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, and what those absences mean and how we as a district look at those. And we'll go over what our attendance letters look like, as some of you may get those throughout the year. So there are some long-term impacts of missing school, and I really like this graphic because it shows what that looks like. So if a student misses 1 day a quarter, this equals 4 days per year, 1 week per year. That's 30%, 36% of a school year, which is quite a lot. If they miss a day per month, as you can see, this chart goes over just as the days increase, how much more school that they're missing. And it's important for students to be here each day for their learning, connectivity, community, building relationships with teachers and other staff on site. The other thing that we want to look at is tardies. So we only track students, if students are late 30 minutes or more, then that counts as like a truancy tardy. But I think it's important to understand, even coming in late to school 5 minutes a day, right? Let's look at that line where it says 10 minutes per day. If a student is late 10 minutes per day, that's 50 minutes a week, 1 week of school per year, which is a lot. And if you're looking at the over 13 years of schooling from the time they're in kindergarten through high school, that's 30%, 36% of a school year. And that's a lot of time for students to miss. So it's really important getting students to school on time. I'm going to share some tips with what that could look like, because I know as a parent that morning traffic and getting into school can be kind of rough. So I have some ideas that I can share with you on what that can look like to support you. So I often get the question is, how does attendance impact funding in the Union School District? And does it? And yes, attendance does impact our funding. In California is one of the 7 states that funds schools based on attendance. So it's called ADA, average daily attendance. So we get funded whether students are in their seats or not. And as you can see, each day a student does not come to school, it results in an $80 loss of funding, even if the absence is excused. So like I said before, we understand there are circumstances where students need to miss, but overall, we really want to think about what that looks like and making sure students do come to school, and how to get them here. Sometimes there might be anxiety reasons, and as a school, we can support you with that. We have staff available to help your student with that so that they're at school and getting all the education that is available to them, and just creating those connections. So I do want to share the funding because it does affect school districts in California. Now, there's a thing called the 10% rule. So any student who is absent for 10% of the school year, even if the absences are excused, they're considered chronically absent. If you have a student that falls within that category, you will get a letter that will be sent out to you. It's called a chronic absenteeism letter. And we send that letter as a notification so that you're aware of that. Now, let's say at the very beginning of the school year, maybe it's in the first week of school, your child gets sick, which happens, right? They're coming back to school, there's germs, and they might get a cold or have the flu or something happens, and they might miss 3 or 4 days within that first 2 weeks of school. Because that is more than 10% of the school year, you would receive a letter. But the thing is, because it's at the beginning of the school year, if your student is at school regularly for the rest of the year, then they will fall out of that chronic absenteeism. It's just, we look at how many days have been in school and how many days they have missed. And if you hit that 10%, that's considered chronically absent. Now, like I said, they can fall out if their attendance improves. If it's at the end of the year, though, and a student has missed more than 18 days, then you would be considered chronically absent. The state does track that for a district. We have what's called the California dashboard, which shares all of our the SBAC testing results. You'll see suspension rates, attendance rates, and one of the things you will see is chronically absent. So when we have students that hit that 10% mark, the district, it is something the state monitors and looks to see what districts are doing to improve that for our kids. Sorry, my screen is, okay. There's also truancy, and people might wonder, what does truancy mean? So a student missing more than 30 minutes of instruction without an excuse 3 times during the school year is classified as truant. A student who misses 3 days of school without an excuse is also classified as truant. So it could be that the student has missed 30 minutes of instruction. They came in late and they did not have an excuse. And then maybe they were sick, I don't know, 2 weeks later, and there was no call-in or explaining why the student was absent. So that would be unexcused. And then maybe a week later, they were absent again, or they had another a tardy over 30 minutes, and there was no excuse with that. There was no, then that would be considered truancy. And you will receive a letter for that. Once a student has 3 absences or 3 30-minute plus tardies or a combination of both, you would receive a letter that's called a truancy letter. And we send that out as a notification just to help you understand what that means, and that what the state considers truant. And then we, work together with you to figure out how we can support your student. I often get questions about the attendance letters and what they look like and when do they get sent out. So I've created this chart to kind of explain. So if you're ever wondering, when am I going to get a letter, or why did I get a letter? This kind of explains this. So as I explained with the truancies, after 3, you get a letter 1. If you have 6 or more of those, then you're going to get a letter 2, and we're going to set up a meeting called a pre-SARB. So a SARB stands for School Attendance Review Board. So it's a meeting with you, your student, most likely the principal. They might have someone else like a counselor. And then you're going to come up with ideas on how to support making sure your student comes to school. Then if the student has 10 or more truancies, then we go to what's called a SARB meeting at the district office. If a student has missed 10% of the school year, they get a letter, and it's a chronic absenteeism letter, which I explained earlier. And then we have what's called excessive excused. So if you have 7 excused, unexcused absences, you'll get a letter. Once there's 12, you'll get another letter. And sometimes parents get concerned about the letters, but as I said, the letters are a way for us to communicate with you how to support your student and how to make sure and how to come up with a plan. And so sometimes the letters might shock people, or they might be a little bit worried, but we also send these other letters for excessive excuse as just a way to let you know. I always say a parent would hate to just all of a sudden get a letter saying you need to go to the school attendance review board. And you might, as a parent, say, well, no one warned me. I didn't know my student had that many absences, and I didn't know what to do. So that is why we send the letters, and it's just a way for us to communicate and set up meetings so we can work together community to support your students. Hi, Alicia. Thanks for joining. Let me unmute you. Hold on 1 second. I'm going to make a post. Okay. I'm just going to go through a couple more slides, Alicia, and then I'll turn it over to you. Okay. So what happens if you get a letter? It provides information for you about your child's absences. If attendance does not improve, subsequent letters will follow. An attendance meeting will be set up with your principal, and it provides you an opportunity, like I said, again, to work with the school. Remember, we're a team. We work together. Our goal is we want your students at school every day. We don't want them to miss learning. We want them to be part of the community. And so really, this is a collaborative effort to work together. We're not trying to do gotchas and, for your letters. If we're trying to work together with you so that we can be a team to support your students. That's really what the point of our letters and these meetings are, because having your student at school is the most important thing to us. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to skip a few slides ahead to Alicia so she can do her presentation, because I know she has her family as well. And then after she's done, I'll go back through and explain what excused absences look like in the district and our independent study policy. So I'm just going to skip ahead really quick. All right, Alicia, I'm turning it over to you. Oop, I can't hear you. Like hold on. There. Oop. Sorry, I think I unmuted you at the same time. Um, can you try and, let's see. Oh, sorry, click your mute one more time. I won't touch it.
Okay.
Okay. Yep, now we
Great.
hear you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Alicia Shane. I'm a deputy district attorney in Santa Clara County. I handle all of our truancy cases. So we do have a truancy court and I run that court. But I also work with schools and districts and parents like I am tonight to just give information to parents at the start of the school year so that they can make the best decisions for their kids. I'm a parent of 4 young kids. As a fellow parent, what I assume about all of you who are here tonight is that you are doing your very best for your kids and you want the very best for your kids. And we parents make the best decision for our kids when we have the right information. So tonight I'm here to give you that information so that you can make the right choice for your kids throughout this year. And that choice is going to be to get them to school on time every day. So here are some facts about why attendance is so important. We know that attendance is a bigger predictor of high school graduation than test scores. So they did studies where they took children who were scoring higher on the standardized tests but had more absences, followed them longitudinally compared to kids who were scoring lower but were attending more. And those kids with lower academic scores but higher attendance graduated at a higher rate than did the kids who were scoring high. Just showing up is the biggest predictor of a child graduating high school. We know that what the children are learning in elementary ages and elementary grades are the building blocks that they need to get them to where they're going, which is why when third graders can't read on level, they are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. Another way of saying that is nearly a quarter of all third graders who can't read on level don't end up graduating from high school. We also know that chronic absence and truancy is related to things that don't have to do with education. For instance, chronically absent children are more likely to use marijuana, alcohol, and other drugs, and they're more likely to grow into adults who smoke, have diabetes, suffer from stroke and other health issues, and have shorter life expectancy. So we see all of these negative correlatives with missing too much school. And of course, we want to avoid that for your children. You want more than anyone else to avoid that for your children. Next slide, please. I think the number one reason that parents are surprised that their children are missing too much school is because they might not know that just 2 days a month will render their child chronically absent. So missing just 2 days a month will mean that your child is chronically absent, and the significance of chronic absence is that it means the child won't have as an academically meaningful year. As I said, I'm a parent of 4. I understand from experience how easy it can be, especially in Silicon Valley, in Santa Clara County, where we have busy families with busy parents who are juggling a lot of balls in the air, how easy it can be to lose track of how many days that month, last month, the month before it, your child or children have missed school. Particularly when it's just 1 or 2 a month that can render them chronically absent. So one of the things that I encourage you to do as parents is hand yourself success by on either your calendar on your phone, a digital calendar, or if you're an old person at heart like I am, on a paper calendar that you're clinging to, just make a note on each day that your child was absent from school. By doing that, it won't catch you off guard that your child has missed too much school and is edging toward that chronic absence cliff we don't want them to go over. Next slide, please. The other big challenge and task for parents this year, as well as last year, is to kind of shift our mindset into the post-COVID era that we're in. So for 2-3 years during COVID, we were hearing from our schools and districts, do not send your kids to school if they have a cold, if they have sniffles, if they've coughed at any time in the last 7 days, don't send them to school, right? And that was an important message. It was about saving lives. That period is over. And now we are back to, if you have older kids and had children in school in 2019, we are back to those regulations and that advice as to when your child should go to school, can go to school versus when your child should stay home. So no more if your child has, a cough, but they're doing okay, they can go to school. If they have a runny nose, they can go to school. If they have a sore throat but no fever, they can go to school. So, keep that in mind that we are no longer in the COVID restrictions. You can, of course, always ask your school or your district if you have questions about when you should keep your child home. But know that we're all rebuilding that muscle of when it's safe to send our kids to school, even if they're not feeling 100%. Next slide, please. Okay, so lastly, I want to leave you with some concrete things you can do so you ensure your child is in school as much as possible this year and is getting everything they can out of these really important foundational elementary school years. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to create a routine for bedtime and for wake up. And the bedtime routine is the most important part of this routine. The American Pediatrics Association says that children, your children's age, need between 10 and 12 hours of sleep a night. So if you think of what time your child has to get up in the morning in order for them to get dressed, take a shower if they do that in the morning, eat their breakfast, get their bag together, put on their shoes, put on their shoes, put on their shoes, right? You know that even if you subtract just 10 hours from that wake up time, they need to go to bed pretty early. They're probably going to bed around 7:30, 8 o'clock, 8:30 at the latest for them to get at least 10 hours, and it could be up to 12 that they need. So make sure that you are getting them into bed early and that bedtime is using really good sleep hygiene. Taking screens away at least an hour before bedtime, lowering the lights in the house, kind of trying to do that calming environment that we all need in order for our brains to start relaxing so that they can fall asleep once they go to bed. I also encourage you to create a help bank of parents who can help you when the unexpected arises, when your car is in the shop, or you need to be at work earlier than you normally do, or you're sick yourself. Have a list of parents that you've already talked to. Maybe they're your neighbors. Maybe they're your children's friends' parents who you say, hey, if I'm in a pinch, can you help me get my kids to school? And by the way, I'll plan to do the same for you. And that way, when the unexpected arises, you're not caught off guard. You've got a plan and you can put that plan into place. I already talked with you about tracking absences on your calendar so they don't catch you off guard. And the last thing I encourage you to do is communicate with your school. If your child is absent for any reason, if they're sick, if there's another reason they're not in school, if you're having difficulty getting them to go to school, talk to your school, reach out to the teacher and reach out to your principal. They will have ways that they can help you, and just knowing what's happening in your home will make the situation better for you and your child. I appreciate your attention. Are there any questions before we turn this back over to Ms. Murphy?
And if you have any, you can put them in our Google form. And then Alicia, if I have any specific to you, I'll let you know. I'm going to create an FAQs after to put on our website from tonight's presentation.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We appreciate you coming. All right. I'm going to go back over. Let's just click through to what are excused absences? What are allowed in the district? So Yes, we have excused absences, and yes, these still do count towards excessive excuse or chronic absenteeism. So I'm gonna go through these pretty quickly because there's quite a few, but just so you know, so we have personal illness, that also includes mental or behavioral health, quarantine, if once again the city or the state tells us we need to quarantine. If you have a medical, dental appointments, we do really encourage you though, if you do have those appointments, to schedule them after school if possible. I know it's hard because everybody that has kids and they're all trying to get in the dentist and the doctor and the orthodontist, but if possible, if you can schedule them after school, that would be ideal. For the purpose of attending funeral services or grieving the death of a member of the pupil's immediate family or a person that's determined by the pupil's parent guardian to be in close association. The law has changed. It was 3 days and the law has changed to 5 days. So we allow 5 days excused absences if there is a death. And then there's some other that we would like notice ahead of time. So appearance in court, the funeral service, observation of a religious holiday or ceremony, attendant at a religious retreat. And while that says 4 hours per semester, that has changed. We allow 1 day a semester for a student to miss for a religious purpose. Attendance at an employment conference, attendance at an educational conference or legislative or judicial process for students. We have some students that sit on boards, and so that could count for that. If you have a family in the military, if a student is going to become a citizen, participation in a cultural event that relates to habits, practice, or beliefs. And then if there's certain things that you need to ask for, at discretion of the principal. So if there's something you're going to be out for and you're going to miss like 1 day or 2 days, then you can reach out to your principal for that. The one thing we often get questions about is when people have to go and renew visas. That is not an excused absence. If it might be 1 day, you can work with your principal to excuse it. If it's multiple days, then it wouldn't be something that would be excused. So if you want information on these as well, there's more information in the parent handbook, and I believe it's on page 6, and it has all of the excused absences with some more detail. Now, if your child is absent, and as Alicia was saying, and I'm saying, communicating with the school is key, because if you communicate with us and let us know why what the reason is, then that helps us. So attendance notifications go out via Parent Square, and so you would get a text, a phone call, or an email. If you receive a notice, but you've already provided the school's attendance line or staff member with the absent, you don't need to do anything because we'll take care of that on our end. But maybe, your student was sick and you hadn't had time to call into the school yet, and you get the Parent Square notification. Well, instead of having to call the school, you can just use the send a note feature and you can type in why the student is absent, and that goes directly to the administrative assistants, and they're able to see, or the health clerks, and they're able to see why you're absent. So it's one way to help our office. And so if you know your child's sick and you haven't had time to call, don't worry, you're going to get the attendance notification and you can just respond in that. You can say my child is sick, or if there's a dentist appointment or something else, you can just put in there. But if you've already called in, maybe you called in the night before, then if you get that notification, don't worry, you don't need to respond. That just means they're going through and they will hear your message. Now, earlier in the night, I talked about school attendance review board as one of the things that happens if you get to that excessive excuse over, or if you continue to get the truancy letters. And so first you would have a meeting with the site, and we would come up with a plan to help your student to figure out what we need to do to get your student back on campus. If after that meeting has taken place and the attendance is still not showing improvement, then we'll have you come to a school attendance review board meeting. And that would be held with myself, our district nurse, the school site administration, and then usually a few other people would come. And then we would work together again to come up with a plan on how we can improve your child's attendance. Because like we said before, our number one thing is to have your students at school. And we know that you want your students at school as well. And so we want to try to remove any barriers that might be in the way to help getting your student at school and not missing out from their education. So our goal of SARB is to create a plan to improve attendance. We're together working as a team. That's our number one goal. And if your attendance starts to improve, and even if in small increments, that is wonderful, and we will celebrate that, because that is really our goal, is to make sure your students at school. Now, if the attendance continues to decline and there's no improvement in the case, then your case will be referred to Alicia, and you will be seen in front of a judge, and you will be in what's called RISE court, and they will come up, work with a plan with you there to try to approve attendance. And then at that point, it gets turned over. But we try not to let that happen, because we want to work together as a team. So that happens in very rare cases. And I often get this question, what about vacations? Well, we really hope that you plan your vacations around the school days that we're not in session, but we do understand that sometimes situations come up. There could be an opportunity where a parent has to travel for work, and it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you really want to take your kids along on that. And so we do have resources, and we are able to support you with that. So if something comes up and it's outside of the regular school days off, then what we have is an independent study program. And so you must request that from the office 2 weeks in advance, because it does take teachers time to pull all the materials together to make sure they have everything that your students need. Students are allowed to take up to 14 days maximum a year, and they can take up to 3 days minimum. So if you're, if it's just going to be a long weekend, so you can take up 3 days up to 14. And maybe you take 3 days at one time, and then you're going to take another 4 later in the year, as long as it doesn't go over 14 days. We do not offer independent study the first and the last 2 weeks of school. The school has just started, so teachers need to have time to get to know your students to be able to pull that together. And the last 2 weeks of school, we just need to end the school year out. And so we don't offer it then either, because also teachers end the same day students end. All work must be completed and turned in when your student returns to receive full credit. And if the work is completed, those days count as if your student was at school. They're not marked absent, they're not marked unexcused or excused. It counts as if your child was at school. So if you know that you have a vacation coming, please work with your site and make sure you get that 2 weeks in advance. Okay. And Alicia went over a lot of really great ways to improve attendance at home. And so, like she said, keep a calendar at home to mark and celebrate even all the days your student was present and on time. Maybe you have a child that it's really a struggle in the morning to get them up and going. And so celebrating when they get to school on time, that's something, a little favorite song in the car. Maybe they pick out something that they want, a special dinner that they want to help make, or they get to watch their favorite show, just something, just to celebrate, especially if they're struggling with coming to school or being on time. Setting regular bedtime to help your child to get at least 8.5, but we would like 10 or more hours of sleep. Setting out the clothes the night before. I know as a child, I love to pick out my clothes, and in the morning, I may have not liked my outfit, and then it would be a struggle. So doing it the night before made life so much easier, because I knew when I woke up in the morning, that's exactly what I was going to wear and out the door, and there were no arguments. Pack your lunch the night before as well, if possible, or you can eat lunch at school. It's free. Every student gets lunch for free at school. So if in the morning you're running around and we don't have time to get lunch, or there's a struggle, remember there's free lunches at school, and there's a variety of options each day for students. Deciding the night before what you're going to have for breakfast, and getting that, ready to go. That takes away some of that in the morning figuring things out. The one thing I always say, give yourself a 5 to 10 minute buffer in the morning to avoid the drop-off traffic at school site. So if you can get there 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before school starts to drop your student off, that's great. As we know, the parking lots get very, very crowded in the morning. Or if you're able to park a couple blocks away and walk in with your student, it provides a little exercise for everybody in the morning. Or if you live close enough to the school, walking to school is also a great option. As I said before, if you can set up appointments outside of regular school hours, I know that can be difficult sometimes, but that's another option. And then reach out to your school's principal or myself if you need support talking to your student about the importance of attendance. Like I said, we are here to support you. We are a team, and we want your students to thrive at school every day. And we want to make sure that they're there enjoying school. So if there's something we can do to support your children at school, support them getting to school, especially if they're struggling with that, then please reach out. We are a team. The attendance is important to us because having your child at school every day and learning is really key to their future. So that is all I have for our attendance presentation tonight. As I shared earlier, I'm going to drop it in the chat one more time. Please feel free to use our Google form for any questions you might have. I will be posting this video on the website as well as the FAQs. And in the questions, you can share your email and I can share directly with you the FAQs as well. So thank you everybody for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time this evening and have a wonderful rest of your Thursday night.